Welcome to another episode of Carolyn Talks Television. I'm Carolyn Topal, and today, as my normal co-host, Rachel Arnett, is not available, we have a special guest co-host, my fabulous daughter, Jen Molinari. So please welcome her as we start Carolyn Talks Television. Now, this time, now Rachel and I had decided this, but you knew what this topic was, so that was good. We're going to talk about something that a lot of people try not to talk about except when they're cranky. And that's how early the sun sets. Now, I know some people have something called seasonal affect disorder this time of year, which for 3 months really gives them stress and difficulty because there's so little light. I'm personally one of the lucky people who doesn't have that. However, it is really dark and gloomy when you look out your window at 4:20 and you're seeing, starting to see that the stars are about to come out. So I always think I wish there was something to sort of fill that light because it feels cozy, it feels warm, but it also feels dark.
Yes.
So I wanted to think what lights up my days, makes me happy when it's like not dinner time yet. I mean, it's 4:15, it's not time for dinner. What do I want to do? What do I want to watch to sort of fill the light that's not outside? I don't know if you've ever felt that way about the dark in the evening.
Kind of. It gets a little confusing. I feed my rabbit every evening, and by that I mean night, and I literally at like 6 at night, I was like, oh, we should go feed her, and that's 2 hours early. So, yeah, it's very confusing. I don't really like that dark thing.
Yeah, it's like, what do they call that? Your circadian rhythm gets off.
That, yeah.
Yeah. So I was thinking, what do I like? And one of the things I like, of course, is television. But there's certain go-to TV I kind of like more than others now for a variety of reasons. As you all know, I'm big on the Hallmark Christmas movies. And also the movies they show on Movies and Mysteries channel. They have a couple of channels now, which are fabulous. And there are some really good quality new movies out there. Also on their Movies and Mysteries network, they also have Christmas movies, but they're sort of a deeper, more dramatic side to them.
They're definitely deeper. There's more, mystery, conveniently,
Yeah.
to them. There's always something to solve and figure out. I think last year there was something about a charm bracelet that I think was the Murder and Mysteries channel.
Yes, I agree. In fact, it may have been called the Charm or something, or the Christmas Charm.
Yeah, I think that sounds right.
And what they do is they really add a twist that adds a depth, which for people who find that the regular Hallmark channel is just too fluffy, although sometimes I wonder if there's such a thing as too fluffy, just saying.
No, there's such a thing.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Too fluffy. If you do the Hallmark Movies and Mysteries, you actually will find twists. Frequently, it's about a hidden mystery from the past, secrets in a family tree. I mean, there's something that gives another level of question about where the story's going. I mean, it's Hallmark. We know it's going to go to a happy place. So that's what makes it light in my eyes, because I know I will have an uplifting feeling at the end, but it still keeps my brain moving because I want to know what the mystery is. What are some of the things that, though, get you going? Like, do you have certain TV shows that are go-tos that wake you up?
Since you did mention mysteries, now frequently I DVR because they're not always on at the time that I'm able to watch them, but the PBS tends to air, and Ovation, I think is the channel, has Death in Paradise. And it's one of those things that I don't delete from my DVR, and I just like rewatch over and over again. So if I know it's a murder mystery, so that shouldn't be cheery,
But Death in Paradise, for those of you not familiar with it, is a British mystery show, which, let's face it, the British do it so well. A British mystery show filmed truly on a Caribbean island, a British-owned island, and it's generally speaking about a small police force led by usually a
British inspector from London.
British inspector from London who was sent to be the head of the crew. And it's changed over the years. Every couple of seasons and what they call series, they get a new inspector to probably refresh the show. And they move on. But it's what I would call Murder, She Wrote, Murder Light.
I like that too.
Yeah, okay.
I love watching that. And there's actually a couple that were more recent that I completely forgot who did it. I was like, I know all of these by heart, and I forgot who did it. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to watch this again.
Hey, I mean, there was like 12 years of them because there's got to be stuff you're going to forget over time.
Yes, 12 seasons I discovered today when I found...
Oh, I got it right.
I saw the complete set somewhere, and Rick was like, you can get all 12 seasons.
Oh, my goodness. And Rick is her husband.
Oh, yes,
by the
Rick
way.
is my husband, and he likes to point all of these things out to me when...
Now, let's flip away from murder, because some people are sitting there saying probably, I cannot believe she's talking about murder when she's talking about lighting up her day. That is not, right, that is not all I do. One of my favorite things to watch are cooking shows. Cooking shows, if you pick the right ones, either will make you laugh, they'll make you think, and maybe even take note about how flavors blend if it really is more of an educational style cooking show. They're also comforting, and they can also be funny. Mm-hmm. So you have really a really good gamut. Also, they're competitions. Many of them end up being competitions.
Love the competitions. Love those. Especially the cake show is what I call it. Every season has their cake show. Or there's either like the kids one, or right now there's a holiday baking championship, and I love my cake shows.
And you know, in our state, we have a champion of one of the spring baking shows right in Mystic.
Actually, he ended up winning the Best Baker in America season 2, I think it was.
Oh.
He came as one of the runner-ups in Spring Baking Championship. I don't pay attention at all when I watch these shows. But yeah, it was actually Best Baker in America that he got.
So he did whatever the show was. He won, and that is Sift Bakery.
In Mystic,
Connecticut. So he's a local, and let me tell you, if you walk into Sift Bakery, you will know why he won, because those are his recipes. He's not making everything there all the time. He could not possibly, because the lines are out the door. They do move fast, but the lines are out the door. But anyway, the cooking championships are fun, competitions. Another thing that's nice, you talk about lighting up and comforting you this time of year. If any of you have ever watched Ina Garten, the Barefoot Contessa, which was her store before she went into the cooking show business solely, in the Hamptons, this woman's voice would comfort anybody. It's this comforting, the way of talking. She's so lighthearted. She smiles all the time. And then, of course, if you see a documentary, which I actually saw her interviewed on 60 Minutes recently, and I'm sure you can get that one on YouTube because she was interviewed on 60 Minutes, she's a serious cook. She tests her recipes multiple times before she puts them in a book. Oh. She's really intense. She has a gazillion people try them. And she has quite a history, because at one time in her life, when she was a very young woman, she actually worked in a totally different career in an office in the White House.
Why would she do that? She's so good at cooking. I mean, I've seen the show.
She didn't know she didn't cook yet.
Well, I'm glad that she switched.
That's right. And now you can watch Barefoot Contessa, and now she has guests. I mean, I saw her last week with Emily Blunt. Okay.
Snap.
So you have Ina Garten and Emily Blunt cooking in a kitchen together. She works with all the best. She has them as guests, and she does it at her home property, but she sort of has a kitchen space in back of her home amongst all her gardens with all her growing vegetables and plants. It's wonderful. So what about you? What's another thing besides the mystery venue that you enjoy?
I actually watch a lot of Disney Junior. I'm going to be 100% honest there. I watch a lot of it. I have no child. I have a lot of love for Disney Junior shows because Disney itself makes everything layered. So even though they have, I think it's like, does BBC have an Australia branch? Is that how it works? Or something? There's an Australian show right now, Bluey, that's gotten like huge. Like the Thanksgiving Day Parade released all sorts of exciting things coming, and there's going to be a Bluey balloon, which let me tell you, I'm so excited.
And for those of you watching this, because it's not going to air till December, there was a Bluey balloon in the Thanksgiving Day Parade.
Oh yeah, my bad.
Well, that's okay. If you didn't see it, I'm sure once again, YouTube the Bluey balloon. Yes. Or just Google the Bluey balloon, and I'm sure you could get it a bazillion times.
Bluey is so great. Like, I have a friend who has a 1-year-old, and she pointed out to me the different layers. She said it's almost more about parenting than like a kid's show. Like, it's all very silly, which is what makes it great for kids, but it looks at parenting so much with how the parents react to their children. And I'm like, okay, well, sure, I'll take notes later. And in the meantime, I will enjoy children pretending that, you know, their parent is really their child and drag them through the supermarket.
There you go.
That was a good episode.
I'll look for that. Actually, I have seen Bluey because the last time my family, we are a very Disney-oriented family, we're in Disney World. Of course, they have the Disney Channel on the room TV, and our son stays with us in our room, and he loves Disney Junior. And so apparently the times that we would get up to get ready to go to the park, there's like 10 Blueys on in a row.
Yes.
And so he would sit there and watch them, and I couldn't manage, you know, you're sharing a room, you couldn't miss it. And I started saying, gee, this is cute. It really was. It was engaging, and it wasn't like other cartoons that I have seen that are more just targeted to the main demographic, which would be children.
Well, some of the Disney Junior shows that are newer, I feel like are a little like that. But then there's things like also Puppy Dog Pals, that's multi-seasons now. But they cover everything, and they're also super diverse. Every year, they have Christmas and Hanukkah represented.
Well, okay, and I'm sure they have Kwanzaa, too.
In one way or another, usually. They celebrate everything, and they celebrate it for everyone.
Because one of the things that's important is if you're going to have these shows and have one parent to watch them with you, you want to make it engaging. I mean, just going off a little sidetrack quickly, Sesame Street was the classic for that.
Oh, classic. Yeah.
There's no question about it. Sesame Street was created so the parent could watch or the grandparent could watch with the child and not get bored.
And not want to rip their hair out?
That either, exactly. Now, I'm going to switch a little gear.
Okay, go for it, yeah.
I love sitcoms. I love sitcoms. If you can get me a good sitcom, and I DVR a couple of them. There's not a whole lot of great ones out there these days, but a couple of sitcoms that I really enjoy, interestingly enough, are on a network that gets very little attention these days, and that's CBS.
Oh, yeah.
I watch, and all of you can watch it too. It's on Thursday nights. These two back-to-back shows are called Young Sheldon, which we've spoken about before, which has, in my opinion, really developed in a very high quality show. The first season, I was like, okay, how much of a chance am I going to give it? And then the second season, it really got its legs and really started finding a direction that made sense and that was not sort of annoying.
Oh, okay.
And then right after that show, which is, of course, by the way, Young Sheldon, if you don't remember, is a show that is a precursor to the Big Bang Theory character of Sheldon, played by Jim Parsons. And he actually narrates every episode of Young Sheldon. So if you're missing the Big Bang Theory, for 25 minutes once a week, you get to hear Jim Parsons narrate his life in his preteen and now teen years.
Not Jim Parsons' life, Sheldon's life.
Sheldon's life. Exactly, Sheldon's life.
I was going to say, let's not make it...
No, it's not Jim Parsons' life, Sheldon's life. And then following that is a much newer show, I believe it's in its second season now, called Ghosts.
Oh, I don't know that one.
And the premise of this show is this very young newlywed couple buys an old inn, and the wife, she falls down at one point, and the conch on her head makes her able to see all the ghosts that have died on that property that is owned by the inn that are still haunting it, and they going way back, like hundreds of years. It's hilarious. Like, it goes back to the Vikings. It's a riot. There's a Viking there. There's Native American there. I mean,
oh, wow.
There's Revolutionary War people on both sides.
Oh, that's very diverse too.
Yes. And it's a hilarious show.
When did you say this was on?
This is on right after Young Sheldon. Thursday nights, Young Sheldon, followed by Ghosts.
Okay.
And it's a kind of show, by the way, now that you know the premise of it, that you really don't need to start from day one.
Oh, good.
I just gave you the premise. She got conked on the head, she can see the ghosts. Her husband can't, but he does know she does. So every once in a while, she has to fill him in if the ghosts are telling her something. Because he can't see them or hear them, but every once in a while, if he needs some guidance from them, they find a way to communicate with him, but that's not as often as just she's the interpreter. It's hilarious. They get the couple in trouble, but they also help them because they're trying to help them make the incest success.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's very amusing, and those are two sitcoms I find that while I can think, and they have good stories, I'm not watching something really, really so dramatic that it's painful, that I have to think too hard, or that I could be brought down a bit depending on the theme.
Thinking is not really good for that whole light thing.
It's not, for example, and not that this is bad, but it's not MASH, which could bring you down because of the premise of the show.
That's true.
These are much more lighthearted sitcoms, yet they do have depth and thought that goes into them. What's another one for you?
Trying to decide if I should go children's again. How about older children's? Phineas and Ferb. I don't know if people remember that show. By the way, it's still being aired on Disney XD and sometimes on Disney Channel. Phineas and Ferb is great. It's, what do you want to do today? Or I know what we're going to do today. And then they create some weird thing, and their sister Candace tries to bust them, and then it's this whole crazy thing. And then the side story is always Perry the Platypus, who ends up being Agent P. And they don't know that. They're his host family. They don't know that he is. It's like a big secret. But he puts on a fedora, and all of a sudden he's Agent P. And let me tell you, yeah, exactly.
Okay, then.
And what's great is his nemesis doesn't realize that it's Agent P unless the fedora's on. Oh, it's just a platypus. Agent P! And it's like, really?
It sounds like it's, if nothing else, engaging and fun is what it is.
Super entertaining. And, I mean, there might be depth. I just never looked for it. There probably is. I mean, sometimes she's like, oh, well, I don't want to bust them. I do love my brothers, you know, for her, for their older sister. But, I mean, at the same time, it's fun. It's exciting. There's silly things.
I think it's also about creativity.
Yes.
And that's something that when you're sort of feeling down, if you see people being creative, it might sort of lend itself to you being more creative about what you're doing, where you're doing it, how you want to do something. to not just sit and say, it's dark outside,
Yeah.
which is kind of sad in and of itself. Now, I'm going to tell you one of my favorite things, game shows. Because talk about waking you up when it is dark out is watching a game show at night and getting so engaged you feel like you're almost at a live sporting event. For starters, as you all know, Jeopardy is my go-to. So DVR every night, watch as often as we can.
I am so glad you DVR it now, because I still remember a few years ago calling you to ask a quick question and you saying, why are you calling me during Jeopardy?
There you go.
Just saying. That's how excited and like
Engaged
and
involved, and just the show is like, it's one of my biggest go-tos. But what happens is also when it's really dark and it's been dark for hours, it kind of wakes me up because it wakes my brain up and it turns things back on. And then, then of course we have Wheel of Fortune in Connecticut that follows Jeopardy.
I do like that one. I'm better with word puzzles.
And it's really fun, and it's also fun in many respects that many of us have seen. And you know that because they're on TV, they're nervous. Because everybody who gets on these shows has had to do something to get on them. They don't just pick your name out of a hat. You had to have passed a screening. Now,
That would have been super entertaining if they just picked their name out of a hat. Just saying.
That would be. But like for Jeopardy, you actually take a formal test.
Well, that makes sense.
So it's a little bit different. So then when you watch Wheel of Fortune, when you see somebody and they have like every letter but one and then they get the puzzle wrong, and it's all just a guess the word puzzle, guess the words, and then they get it wrong, you want to scream at the screen, how stupid are you or whatever, and it wakes you up and it's engaging. But actually what I watch is I say, you know what, if I was on national television, especially because they have a studio audience,
Oh, yeah.
I would probably be pretty scared too.
Yes.
And not think as clearly as I do in my den, in my bathrobe, with my slippers on and my feet up. It's a little bit different environment. But for me, it's one of those things that lightens up the evening.
Well, that's good. I will say those tend to conflict with my husband's and I together lighten up the evening thing. Baseball, basketball. And he is hardcore Red Sox, but he'll watch the Mets now too. He'll flip back and forth because I'm a Mets fan. And then when it's not baseball season, there's the Celtics, which he loves following. Those are his two first sports if those are on. And then even though he says football afterwards, I don't like football, so we go hockey next for me.
Okay.
But pretty much right now, is there a game on tonight? Yeah, there is. And we pretty much kind of plan our evening around that because that's kind of happy making, and that gets us really awake and into things like a game show does to you.
I was going to say, I'm sure it gets you riled up too because
Yes.
when I watch now I usually watch sports daytime shows when it's daytime anyway. Like I'll watch the sporting events that are happening at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on the weekend. I don't tend to watch sports on the weekdays. But another thing I do watch is, and we've spoken about this, PBS, Public Broadcasting System, tends to air a variety of shows. And I've spoken with Rachel about this, and we've all spoken on our show together about this many times. The PBS shows from Britain, when they bring those over, they are really good. And they are engaging, like this Death in Paradise is one of those. Another one that's a brand new show, and if you haven't gotten into it yet, you still can catch up. I'm sure it's on demand. Magpie Mysteries.
More mysteries.
This one may only be a single season, which is very interesting because I'm not sure if they would just do a new show the next time around or what. But this one's premise got my attention, which is why I decided to DVR the first episode. And then when I got it, I was like, oh my God, I have to get every single show. It's about a woman who's an editor, a book editor, who her client, her top writer, writes mysteries about a specific detective. And it's modern day, though. It is modern. But the mysteries take place about 30 years ago, probably, or, in the 50s, 40s time frame. And he's got his character, and the character is like a detective, not like Hercule Poirot, but basically saying he's got a marked detective, only the person who was the writer was a horrific person. He was mean and nasty to everybody. He always tried to manipulate people. He just was, and he's murdered in the first episode.
Oh, nice.
Just as she discovers when she's reading his new manuscript that he has said it's going to be the last book, and the last chapter has gone missing.
Okay.
So it's all about her finding the last chapter. How she does it, she actually sees his detective in her imagination and uses those skills that she's learned from all the other books.
Oh my gosh.
To both solve the mystery of how the book murder mystery ends, which is magpie murders.
Okay.
And how she's going to solve who killed him.
How many episodes back am I?
It's so worth your time. It's PBS. It's British BBC. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
It definitely lightens up. And what I do is I record it because it's on Sunday nights. I record it and I watch it the next day or two. Usually I can't wait till the evening, but if I could, I'd like to wait till like 4 o'clock, just as the sun is setting. And it's a great mood to see how she's uncovering and unraveling the mystery, guided by his make-believe detective. Now, I don't know what you all watch, but you know what we watch. Getting comfortable on cold winter nights, all cuddled up in front of a TV, pick something, DVR something so you can watch it just when you need to. And make sure you may even want to have a cup of cocoa, cup of coffee, cup of tea with you, and enjoy those beautiful moments when something can lighten you up from inside just by watching it on the screen. I find that really, really beautiful. What do you think?
I think it's cool. I recommend popcorn, though.
Yes. Oh, popcorn and coffee for me is a good dip.
Yeah.
I bet I could even, no, I'm just saying, I wouldn't dip it.
Please don't do that.
And for those of you who go for gingerbread goes really well with a cup of tea. Just saying.
It does.
I have no idea where I thought of that. Well, maybe I do. But just saying. And thank you for joining us. Stay warm and cozy and enjoy lots of terrific shows this winter. And thank you, Jen, for joining me today.
Of course.
And thank you all for joining us for another episode of Carolyn Talks Television.